Welcome to Ethan's Footy Channel. Today we'll be doing my ladder predictions for every game this season, and make sure you like and subscribe and tap the notification bell and you'll be notified when I ever post a video. Let's get into the video. First game, we got Sydney versus Melbourne. SCG up for opening round, the first game of the year. I reckon Sydney win by 8 points. Brisbane versus Carlton. This could be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if Carlton do pull upset. I'm going to tip Brisbane by 17 points. Richmond Gold Coast, Karate, Demon Cup. I reckon we'll win this game by 3 points. Giants versus Collingwood. This will be probably one of the big games. I reckon the Giants by 4 points. Now we're on to round one, Carlton versus Richmond. Won't go into much detail, I'll just say how much they will win by. I reckon the Blues, unfortunately, we're going to get pumped in this one by 22 points. Collingwood versus Sydney, I reckon the Pies win by 23 points. Essendon versus the Hawks by about maybe 10 points. Giants versus North by probably by 69 points. Geelong versus St Kilda by 16 points. Gold Coast versus Adelaide by 20 points. Melbourne versus the Dogs. I reckon the D's by about 37 points. Port versus West Coast. Don't see much these two doing really well this year. I just reckon Port's going to have better season than the Eagles. Brisbane versus Fremantle. I can see upset this one. I reckon see Fremantle upset. Probably a Brisbane win by 8. St Kilda versus Collingwood. I reckon Collingwood by about 5 points. Crows versus Geelong at Adelaide Oval. I reckon the Crows by 29 points. North versus Fremantle. North upset. I reckon it's going to be a North upset again. North by 15 points. Hawthorn versus Melbourne. Melbourne's going to probably have a better season than the Hawks. I reckon Melbourne by 17 points. Sydney versus Essendon. Sydney win by about 51, I reckon, in my opinion. Bulldogs versus Gold Coast. I'm going to change it to the Dogs by 12 points. Port versus Richmond. We'll lose this. West Coast versus GWS by 36 points. Brisbane versus Collingwood. This is a big game. I reckon Brisbane will get them back by 15 points at the Gabba. North versus Carlton at Marvel. I reckon the Blues by a comfortable 14 points. Fremantle versus Adelaide, I reckon Fremantle by 26 points. I reckon the Crows will have a better season. I reckon the Dockers in the West. Essendon versus St Kilda. St Kilda by about maybe Jay Gresham's old side. This will be lots of fights in this one. St Kilda, I reckon the Saints will win by 22 points. Port versus Melbourne. I reckon Port Adelaide are going to win this one. West Coast versus Bulldogs. I reckon that it would be another West Coast upset. This one. West Coast by 15 points. Sydney versus Richmond will get absolutely smashed by 34 points, unfortunately, for Richmond fans. Probably lose to Sydney. Hawthorn versus Geelong. I reckon the Hawks are going to have a better season than the Cats. Hawks by... It's always close on Easter Monday. Hawks by 7. Gataran. Crows versus Melbourne. I reckon the Crows by 46. Brisbane by 67. I reckon this is an upset. Desmond against his old side, and Desmond gets his old side. This would be big. Probably be a bit lot sparing. Essendon by 3 points. West Coast versus Sydney and Adelaide Hills. Sydney will win this by 39. Fremantle versus Carlton. I reckon they will break Fremantle's heights again this season at Allied Oval. And Bulldogs versus Geelong at Allied Oval. Both teams don't play well at Allied Oval usually. I actually will go with the Dogs. The Suns versus GWS. I reckon the Gold Coast will win this one. Richmond versus St Kilda at Norwood. You can get me defended St Kilda. I reckon we'll win this game by 21 points. Collingwood versus Hawthorn. I reckon Collingwood by 2 points. Jack Kemping against us. Lots of fights in that game, I reckon. Melbourne versus Brisbane. Brisbane by 1 point. They're way better out the Gabba right now. Way better out the MCG, I mean. Bulldogs versus Essendon. I reckon the Dogs by 16 points. Giants versus St Kilda. Giants will win this one by 22. Carlton versus Adelaide. The Blues should win this one. Quite easy. The Crows don't travel really well. Gold Coast versus Hawthorn. Gold Coast should win this one. Port versus Fremantle. I reckon Port by 47 points at Adelaide Oval. Geelong versus North. Cats by 67 points. I'll go over the lab in around 10. West Coast versus Richmond. Unfortunately, we'll probably beat the West Coast Eagles by 30 points. St Kilda versus Bulldogs by about maybe 19 points. Adelaide versus Essendon by 21 points. Collingwood versus Port. I reckon this will be a nice smashing. Collingwood by 64 points. Carlton versus GWS. Carlton will probably win that. Brisbane versus Geelong, this will be smashing. West Coast versus Fremantle. I reckon this will be close to go down to the rewire. Sydney versus Gold Coast. I reckon the Swans win that one. North versus Hawthorn. Hawthorn by 28 points. Richmond versus Melbourne. Unfortunately, we'll get smashed by 57 points. Essendon versus Collingwood by 3 points. Giants versus Brisbane. I could see a Giants upside. I reckon Brisbane win. They're going to have a better season. Port versus St Kilda. I reckon the Power by 21 points. Crows versus North. This will be a big upset. This won't be a big upset. I reckon the Crows will win by 74 points. Geelong versus Carlton. Carlton by about 2 points. Sandwash after siren. And Bulldogs versus Fremantle at Optus. I reckon the Dogs will win by 38 points. Ball up against the side again. Gold Coast versus West Coast. West Coast will lose this one by 33 points. Hawthorn versus Sydney. I reckon this is a Hawthorn upset by about 15 points. Crows versus Port in round 8 on the Thursday night. I reckon Crows by 17. Carlton versus Collingwood, I reckon the Pies by 3 points. Sydney versus GWS. I reckon Sydney will win the first one and GWS will get the second time. Swans by 5 points. St Kilda versus North. I reckon St Kilda will win this. I reckon North upset will be in this one. Melbourne versus Geelong. Unfortunately, Melbourne will probably win that. For Geelong fans, don't get me defended because I reckon Melbourne are a better team than you right now. West Coast versus Essendon by 9. Richmond versus Fremantle. I reckon we'll smash them. Hawthorn versus Bulldogs. I reckon the Hawks will win that one by about 16 points. Brisbane versus Gold Coast. Brisbane by 25 points, unfortunately. Brisbane now out 10-0, just realised. And St Kilda in the bottom 5. Yeah, that's really interesting. Bottom 4, I reckon. Carlton versus Melbourne. Melbourne should, I reckon, the Blues win this one. Geelong versus Port Adelaide at Guinea Park. I reckon the Cats win this one. Fremantle, Sydney. I reckon Sydney will win that by 5 points. Hawthorn St Kilda should win that one, probably, maybe. That'd be upset, I reckon. Essendon versus GWS. I reckon the Giants win that. Bulldogs versus Richmond, unfortunately, will get smashed by 44 points. Gold Coast versus North. Gold Coast by 64. Collingwood versus West Coast in round 9. This will be a smashing. Crows versus Brisbane. Adelaide by 16. I reckon this will be the first time Brisbane get knocked off. Gold Coast versus Geelong. Gold Coast by 19, I mean. Sydney versus Carlton. I reckon Sydney by 25 points. Okay game. Sydney will blow it out. Collingwood versus Adelaide. Collingwood by 10 points. Giants versus Bulldogs. I reckon the Giants will win this one. And St Kilda versus Fremantle. I reckon the Saints will lose that one by 11 points. Brisbane versus Richmond, unfortunately, will get hammered in that one. Essendon versus North Melbourne, I reckon the Bombers win. One. Port versus St Kilda. Port by 19. West Coast versus Melbourne, I reckon West Coast by 76. Sydney Bulldogs versus Sydney. Unfortunately, Sydney probably win that one. Collingwood versus Fremantle. This will be a smashing, I reckon. North versus Port. I reckon Port win this one. They are up to 4th place. Gold Coast versus Carlton. I reckon Gold Coast win this one. They get into the top 4. Geelong versus the Giants. I reckon the Giants by about 17 points. Richmond versus North. Richmond versus Essendon in the Dreamtime game by 12 points. I reckon. No, I reckon we'll change it to about 2 points. Hawthorn versus Brisbane. I reckon the Hawks match up quite well against the Lions. I reckon they win this one. Melbourne versus St Kilda. I reckon St Kilda upset in that one. Adelaide versus West Coast. I reckon Adelaide. I'll just show. Let's go over my ladder for the mid-season. Brisbane, Collingwood, Sydney, Adelaide, GWS, Gold Coast, Port. Very interested in these two. Carlton, a bit low. This probably will be a bit high in Port. Melbourne, Hawthorn, Bulldogs, Richmond, St Kilda, Essendon. Very strange to see Geelong in that bottom 4, according to the Squiggle. Fremantle, North and West Coast. Next game, let's go on to round 2. 12, I mean. Port versus Carlton. I reckon Carlton win this one with upset by 10 points. Collingwood versus Bulldogs. Collingwood by 3 points. Hawthorn versus Adelaide. I reckon Hawthorn. West Coast versus St Kilda. I reckon St Kilda win. Lose that one. Geelong, we're playing at Richmond versus Geelong at Cardinia Park. Unfortunately, we'll lose that one. Melbourne versus Fremantle. I reckon this will be a Fremantle outside in Dragon Park. Gold Coast versus Essendon. I reckon the Bombers win this one by about 21 points. Crows versus Richmond. I reckon we'll get hammered in that one by 41 points. Bulldogs versus Brisbane. I reckon Brisbane win that one by about 6 points. Josh Dunkley gets sole side again. I reckon Hawks by 9 points gets the Giants. West Coast versus North. I reckon West Coast by 29 points. St Kilda versus Gold Coast. I reckon St Kilda by about 9 points. Sydney versus Geelong. I reckon the Swans by... I reckon the Cats will get them in this one by 11 points. Essendon versus Carlton. I reckon Essendon by 5. Collingwood versus Melbourne. I reckon Melbourne will get upset in that one. Brisbane versus St Kilda. I reckon Unfortunately, St Kilda are going to get smashed in this one. Bulldogs versus Fremantle. I reckon Dockers will get them back. Richmond's Hawthorn. I reckon Richmond will win by 20 points. Crows versus Adelaide. This is Jordan. What happened? We'll remember what happened last year when it happened at Adelaide. I reckon the Crows will get them this time by 43 points. They'll be hungry to come out. Collingwood versus North. I reckon Collingwood will smash them by over 40 points. 40 or more. Giants versus Port Adelaide. I reckon the Giants by 25 points. Collingwood versus Geelong. I reckon the Cats win that one. It'll be upset, that one. Port versus Brisbane. I reckon Brisbane by 11. Giants versus Sydney. I reckon the Giants will win that one. They shoot into the top 4. Melbourne versus North. Which this will be probably a smashing by 108. Essendon versus West Coast. I reckon the Bombers will win that one. Suns versus Fremantle. I reckon Fremantle. Brisbane versus Melbourne. I reckon Brisbane. Geelong versus Essendon. Geelong. Gold Coast versus Collingwood. I reckon Collingwood by 8 points. I reckon Bulldogs versus North. This will be a smashing by 63. Blues versus Richmond. I reckon we'll get it back. I reckon whoever loses it first, we normally get them. If we lose first, we get them back. If they lose, they get us back sometimes. Richmond by 8 points. Bit upset. St Kilda versus Port. I reckon Saints will win that one. Very surprised in the bottom 4. That probably won't happen. I reckon. Sydney versus Fremantle. I reckon Fremantle get smashed by 43 points. Crows versus GWS. I reckon GWS by 22. West Coast versus Hawthorn. I reckon Hawthorn win this one by 18 points. Brisbane versus Adelaide. Brisbane by 34. Collingwood versus Essendon. I reckon Collingwood win that one by about 18 points. 12 points, I mean. 12 points, I mean. Geelong versus Hawthorn at Knippy. I reckon the Cats win that one. I reckon they won't be in the top 8 for long. Giants versus Carlton. I reckon Carlton will win that one. Melbourne versus West Coast. Melbourne kill them at the MCG by 109, I reckon. North versus Gold Coast. I reckon the Suns win that one. St Kilda versus Sydney. I reckon Swans win that. Port versus Bulldogs. I reckon they'll win this. Fremantle, Richmond. I reckon we'll win that by 7. I'm going to change my mind, actually. Probably Fremantle will win that by 12. Collingwood versus Geelong. I reckon the Pies could actually beat them in that one by 39 points. Suns versus Port Adelaide. I reckon Suns can win that one. I reckon they can have a good season in the Gold Coast. Hawthorn, Fremantle by about 12 points. Melbourne versus Essendon. I reckon Bombers by 44. Richmond versus GWS. I reckon, fortunately, we'll lose this one by 23 points. Sydney versus North. Unfortunately, this will be a smashing. Bulldogs versus Carlton. I reckon Carlton will win this one. Crows versus St Kilda. I reckon the Crows will win this one. Brisbane versus West Coast. I reckon the Eagles win. No, I reckon the Eagles lose out. Unfortunately, by 24 points. Brisbane versus Sydney. I reckon Brisbane win by about 18 points. Carlton versus Northville. I reckon 41 points for the Blues win that one. I reckon Essendon versus Crows by 8. I reckon that could be a Friday night. Geelong versus Bulldogs. I reckon the Dogs will lose by. I reckon the Dogs will win by 17. Giants versus Gold Coast. I reckon the Gold Coast will lose by 18. Hawthorn versus Collingwood. I reckon Collingwood lose that one, but pretty close by 4. St Kilda versus I reckon the Saints. Port versus Richmond. I reckon Richmond by 5. Fremantle versus Melbourne. I reckon Melbourne win that one. Carlton versus Port Adelaide. Blues should win that one. Collingwood versus Richmond. You can hate me for this, Collingwood. I reckon we'll actually beat you by 8 points. Gold Coast versus Brisbane. Gold Coast by about 18 points. I reckon they'll get the second time. Melbourne versus GWS. I reckon the Giants will win. North versus Geelong. I reckon North will win upset. St Kilda versus Essendon. I reckon Saints by 27 points. Sydney versus Bulldogs. I reckon the Bulldogs will get them back. Crows versus Hawthorn. I reckon the Crows by 18 points. Fremantle versus West Coast. I reckon Fremantle will smash you. Collingwood versus Carlton. I reckon the Blues will win this one by 12 points. Essendon versus Fremantle. I reckon Bombers will smash them. Geelong versus Crows. I reckon the Crows will finally beat them at Gadinia Park by 5 points. Big upset. By 5 the Crows will win. Giants versus Hawks. I reckon the Giants will win this one. North Richmond could win this one at Mob. I reckon we'll break our marble Hugh 2 in this round by 26 points over North. St Kilda versus Brisbane. I reckon Saints will win this with a bit of upset. Bulldogs versus Melbourne. I reckon the Dogs will win this one. Port versus Sydney. Unfortunately, Port are going to win that. West Coast versus Gold Coast. I reckon Gold Coast win that one by 32 points. Brisbane versus GWS. I reckon the Lions win by 27 points. Carlton versus Hawthorn. I reckon Carlton by 17 points. Essendon versus Gold Coast. I reckon Gold Coast win this one. Melbourne versus Port. I reckon I'm going to tip Port Adelaide by 8. North versus West Coast. West Coast by 16. Richmond versus St Kilda. St Kilda, I'm actually going to win this one. Sydney versus Collingwood. I reckon Sydney will get this one. Second time I'll beat them. Adelaide versus Bulldogs. I reckon Adelaide by 36. Fremantle versus Geelong. Geelong by maybe. I reckon Geelong by 17. Collingwood Brisbane. I reckon Pies will win this one. They'll get the second time by 17 points. Essendon versus Sydney. And I reckon the Bombers will win this one by. No, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to change to Sydney by 27 points. Gold Coast versus Melbourne. I reckon Melbourne will win this one by 12 points. Giants versus Fremantle. I reckon the Giants will smash them. Hawks versus Richmond. I reckon Hawthorn win that one by 16 points. St Kilda versus Geelong. I reckon Geelong by 40 points. Hawthorn versus Bulldogs versus North Melbourne, I reckon North will win this one by 5 points. Really upset. Port versus West Coast. I reckon Port by 29 points. Carlton versus West Coast. I reckon Carlton beat them by 13 points. Brisbane versus Essendon. I reckon Brisbane win that one. Carlton versus St Kilda by 1 point. I'm going to change my mind. St Kilda win. Geelong versus West Coast. I reckon Geelong win that. Need to go back. Just need to change the game quickly. I reckon St Kilda. Hawthorn versus North, I reckon North by 5 points. Melbourne versus Collingwood, I reckon Collingwood by 25 points. Unfortunately, Melbourne missed finals this time. Richmond versus Gold Coast, I reckon the Tigers win that by 5 points. Sydney versus Adelaide, I reckon Swans win by 27 points. Giants versus Bulldogs, I reckon Bulldogs win that. Just need to go. I might change the Hawthorn one, but Hawks by 32. Fremantle versus Adelaide. I reckon Port win. So let's go on to finals now. I'll just go through the ladder quickly. West Coast, North, Fremantle, Essendon, Bulldogs, Geelong, Melbourne, Richmond, St Kilda, Hawthorn, Port, Adelaide, GWS, Carlton, Collingwood, Brisbane. Just going to need to change one of the games quickly, guys. I reckon Bulldogs. Yeah. I think the Bombers will make a pick upset at the Lancers with, in my opinion. And Richmond, I reckon, will need to change the game for them. I reckon we win. Just need to change a quick game quickly, guys. I reckon Bulldogs. Let's move on to final. So I'll just tell the lab. West Coast, North, Fremantle, Geelong, Melbourne, St Kilda, Hawthorn, Essendon, Richmond, Bulldogs, Port, Gold Coast, Adelaide, Sydney, Carlton, GWS, Collingwood, Brisbane. Let's move on to finals. I reckon Brisbane versus Carlton at the Gabba. I reckon Brisbane will win. Sydney versus Port. I reckon Sydney will win at SCG. Crows versus Gold Coast. Don't think Gold Coast win that. Crows will win that one. I reckon Pies versus Giants. I reckon the Pies will win. Carlton versus Sydney. I reckon Carlton will win. I'm going to change this final to the Giants. I reckon Collingwood versus Adelaide. I reckon, unfortunately, the Blues will... Crows will get losing that one. Brisbane versus... Brisbane versus Collingwood, I reckon... No, Brisbane versus GWS, I mean. Brisbane will win that. I reckon the Blues will make a big upset against the Pies. And my premiers are going to be Brisbane. Thank you guys for watching this video, and please like and subscribe and tap the notification bell. You'll be notified when I ever post a video. Make sure you like and share, and don't miss any content coming out on the channel in the future. See ya.